Beyond the Facts Investigations. Episode 4: The Zodiac Killer. On the morning of August 1, 1969, 3 newspapers in Northern California received letters in the mail. The San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter contained the same message. A man claimed responsibility for 3 murders that had occurred in the region over the previous 7 months. He provided details that had not been made public. Details only the killer could have known. Each letter also contained 1/3 of a cipher. A coded message that, together, the 3 pieces formed a complete cryptogram of 408 characters. The writer demanded that the newspapers publish the cipher on their front pages. If they did not, he wrote, he would go on a killing rampage. He would kill a dozen people that weekend. He did not sign the letters with a name. He signed them with a symbol. A circle with a cross through it. Like a gun sight. Like a target. And at the bottom of each letter, a single word. Zodiac. The Zodiac Killer operated in Northern California between December of 1968 and October of 1969. Those are the confirmed dates. The confirmed victims number 5 dead and 2 wounded. The Zodiac himself claimed 37 murders. The true number is unknown. What is known is this: he was never identified. Never arrested. Never charged. Never tried. Never convicted. He wrote letters to the police, to newspapers, to lawyers. He taunted investigators by name. He sent pieces of his victims' clothing as proof. He designed bombs, described them in detail, and threatened to detonate them on school buses. And then, gradually, the letters stopped. And the killings stopped. And the Zodiac disappeared into the ordinary world. Where, by every measure of the official investigation, he almost certainly lived out the rest of his life. And died without being caught. To understand the Zodiac case, you need to understand the geography and the era. Northern California in the late 1960s. The San Francisco Bay Area and the surrounding counties. A region in the middle of one of the most culturally turbulent decades in American history. The summer of love had already passed through San Francisco like a tide. Vietnam was consuming the country's young men. The social fabric was in visible tension in ways that made ordinary institutional trust difficult. And in this context, a man began killing. The first confirmed attack occurred on the night of December 20, 1968, on Lake Herman Road near the city of Benicia, in Solano County. David Faraday was 17 years old. Betty Lou Jensen was 16. They were on their first date. They had parked at a turnout on a dark road that was used by local teenagers as a meeting point. A car pulled up beside them. A man approached. He shot David Faraday in the head at close range while he was still in the car. Betty Lou Jensen ran. He shot her 5 times in the back. Both died. There were no witnesses. There was no apparent motive. The investigation found nothing. 6 months later, he struck again. July 4, 1969. Independence Day. Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California. A parking area used by teenagers late at night. Darlene Ferrin was 22 years old. Michael Mageau was 19. They were parked in the lot when a car pulled up beside them, drove away, and then returned. A man approached with a flashlight and a gun. He shot both of them multiple times. Then he walked back to his car. Then he returned and shot them again. Darlene Ferrin died. Michael Mageau survived. It was Michael Mageau who provided the only direct description of the Zodiac from someone who had looked at his face. A heavy-set white male. Round face. Light brown or blonde hair. Between 25 and 30 years old. That description would be refined and disputed and revised over the following decades. It was never matched to a confirmed identity. 40 minutes after the shooting, a man called the Vallejo Police Department from a payphone. He spoke calmly. He said he wanted to report a double murder. He gave the location. He also told the dispatcher he was responsible for the Lake Herman Road killings in December. He then hung up. The payphone was traced. It was 2 blocks from the Vallejo Police Department. He had called from almost directly outside the building where the investigators were working. It was the July 4th attack that produced the letters. And the letters were what transformed a regional murder investigation into something else entirely. The cipher he sent to the 3 newspapers was not decorative. It was functional. It was a real encryption system, layered and deliberate, that required expertise to break. A high school teacher in Salinas named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty solved it within a week. They were not professional cryptographers. They applied logic, pattern recognition, and the assumption that a man who believed himself superior would begin his message with the word I. They were right. The decoded message read as follows. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die I will be reborn in paradise and all the people I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. He had, at the bottom of the message, included 18 characters he claimed were his name. Those 18 characters have never been decoded. September 27, 1969. Lake Berryessa, in Napa County. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were college students. They were lying on a blanket near the shore of the lake on a warm afternoon. A man approached from the trees. He was wearing a costume. A black hood over his head with a bib attached to the front. On the bib, a symbol sewn or drawn in white, a circle with a cross through it. The same symbol he had used to sign his letters. He had a gun and a length of rope. He told them the gun was for their comfort. That they would not be hurt. He tied their hands behind their backs while talking to them conversationally. He said he was an escaped convict. He said he needed their car and their money. He seemed, to the survivors' later descriptions, almost calm. Then he produced a knife. He stabbed Brian Hartnell 6 times in the back. He stabbed Cecilia Shepard 10 times. He walked to their car. He drew his symbol on the door with a black marker. He wrote the dates of his previous attacks. He wrote this attack's date. Then he walked away. Brian Hartnell survived. Cecilia Shepard died 2 days later in the hospital. Before losing consciousness, she had described the attack in detail. Her description matched Hartnell's exactly. A fisherman found them. He had passed a man walking away from the lake. Heavy build. Dark clothing. The man had not acknowledged him. The fisherman called the police. The Zodiac called the Napa County Sheriff's Department from a payphone. He said, "I want to report a murder." "No, a double murder." He gave the location. He left the phone hanging. The payphone was traced. His palm print was recovered from the receiver. It did not match any print in the criminal database. It has never been matched to any identified person. October 11, 1969. Presidio Heights, San Francisco. Paul Stine was 29 years old. He was a graduate student at San Francisco State University working as a taxi driver. He picked up a fare at the intersection of Mason and Geary Streets. The destination was Washington and Maple Streets in Presidio Heights. At the destination, the passenger shot Paul Stine once in the right side of the head. He took Stine's wallet and keys. He tore a piece from Stine's shirt. Across the street, on the second floor of a house, 3 teenagers were watching from a window. They saw a white male, stocky, wearing glasses, approximately 30 years old, wiping down the interior of the cab. Wiping everything he had touched. They called the police. A police dispatcher made an error. The description broadcast to patrol units described the suspect as a black male. 2 officers stopped a white male walking in the area minutes after the shooting. He matched the teenager's description. The officer spoke to him briefly. The man asked about the investigation. The officer told him they were looking for a black male suspect. The man walked away. The officer remembered the encounter afterward. The description discrepancy had cost them a chance that may never have come again. The teenager's description was used to produce a composite sketch. It became the most widely circulated image associated with the Zodiac investigation. It shows a man in glasses with a square jaw and short, dark hair. No one was ever conclusively identified from it. The letters continued after the Stine murder. He sent a piece of Paul Stine's shirt in an envelope to the San Francisco Chronicle as proof. He wrote about the teenagers who had seen him. He knew they had been watching. He said the police would never catch him. He began threatening schools. He wrote detailed plans for a bomb to be attached to a school bus. He included a diagram. He threatened to blow up the bus and kill the children inside. The threat was taken seriously enough that school bus routes were monitored by law enforcement across the Bay Area for months. He wrote to attorney Melvin Belli, a famous criminal defense lawyer, asking for help. He wrote that he was sick. That he wanted to stop killing. The letters seemed at moments almost plaintive. He wrote to the newspapers demanding they print his communications. He threatened more killings when they refused or delayed. He sent a map with a cryptic note claiming it showed where a bomb was buried. The bomb was never found. The map led nowhere. The letters came to a total of more than 20 confirmed communications between 1969 and 1974. After 1974, they stopped. No one knows why. The suspect who received more investigative attention than anyone else was a man named Arthur Lee Allen. Allen was a former elementary school teacher who had been removed from his position. He had a criminal history that included molestation charges. He lived in Vallejo and later in Santa Rosa. He matched in several respects the physical descriptions given by survivors and witnesses. He owned a Zodiac brand watch with the crosshair symbol on its face. He had a wetsuit with a symbol resembling the one the Zodiac sewed onto his hood at Lake Berryessa. He had told an acquaintance, before the killings began, that he sometimes fantasized about hunting human beings as sport. He failed a polygraph examination. He was interviewed by investigators multiple times. He became the central suspect in Robert Graysmith's 1986 book simply titled Zodiac, which became one of the most read accounts of the case and was later adapted into a film by David Fincher. Arthur Lee Allen died in 1992 of a heart attack. He was never charged with any crime related to the Zodiac. And he was never definitively linked to the crimes by physical evidence. In 2002, DNA was extracted from the saliva on envelopes that the Zodiac had licked when sealing his letters. The DNA did not match Arthur Lee Allen. It did not match any profile in any criminal database. The DNA sits in evidence files, attached to a case that remains officially open, belonging to a person whose identity remains officially unknown. In 2020, something happened that had been considered impossible for more than 50 years. The 340-character cipher, which the Zodiac had sent to the San Francisco Chronicle in November of 1969, was solved. It had resisted every attempt at decryption since it was received. Professional cryptographers, government agencies, hobbyist codebreakers across multiple generations had tried and failed. A team of 3 men solved it. David Oranchak, an American web designer. Sam Blake, an Australian mathematician. And Jarl van Eyck, a Belgian software developer. They worked together over years, testing thousands of possible cipher configurations. The Zodiac had used a complex transposition system that scrambled the characters in a pattern that was deliberately irregular. The irregularity was what had defeated every previous attempt. When decoded, the message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. Because I am crazy. They are close to catching me. Hoo-ho." The reference to the TV show was understood to be a 1969 episode of the program The Jim Dunbar Show, on which a man calling himself the Zodiac had appeared and spoken to attorney Melvin Belli on air. The Zodiac Killer was apparently aware of the imposter and wanted to distance himself. The 340 cipher offered no name, no location, no new identifying information. But it had taken 51 years to read. And 2 shorter ciphers, the 13-character cipher and the 32-character cipher, remain unbroken to this day. There is a detail in the Zodiac case that sits outside the confirmed Bay Area murders and that investigators have never fully resolved. On October 30, 1966, a student named Sherry Jo Bates was murdered near the library at Riverside City College in Riverside, California. She was 18 years old. She had been stabbed repeatedly and her throat had been cut. A month later, a letter was sent to the Riverside Police Department and to a local newspaper. The letter described the murder in specific detail and made clear it was sent by the killer. The letter was not signed as Zodiac. In 1971, the Zodiac wrote a letter to the Los Angeles Times that included the line, "Riverside is my work. And I am here. And I am not going to give myself to you." No forensic evidence conclusively links the Riverside murder to the Bay Area Zodiac crimes. But no forensic evidence conclusively separates them either. If the Zodiac was responsible for the Riverside murder, he began killing more than 2 years before the Lake Herman Road attack. And his victim count would be higher than any official number acknowledges. Why was the Zodiac never caught? It is a question that has been studied for more than 50 years by professional investigators, retired law enforcement officers, journalists, and researchers who have dedicated years or decades to the case. The answers are multiple. The investigation was divided across several counties and jurisdictions. Vallejo, Napa, San Francisco. Each had its own police department, its own evidence files, its own investigators. Coordination between jurisdictions in 1969 was not what it is today. Information that one department held was not automatically available to the others. Physical evidence was mishandled at multiple points. The palm print from the Lake Berryessa payphone was one of the best pieces of physical evidence in the case. It was never matched. Whether this was because the Zodiac was not in any database, or because the comparison process had limitations, is not certain. The Zodiac was methodical about not leaving fingerprints. He wiped down the interior of Paul Stein's cab while standing at the crime scene, knowing witnesses were present. He wore what appeared to be tape or finger coverings to avoid leaving prints on surfaces he touched. The composite sketch became famous. But a sketch produced from witness descriptions across multiple incidents over 14 months shows inconsistencies. The eyewitness descriptions varied enough that a single sketch was always going to be an approximation. And then there is the question of what he did after 1974. If he stopped killing, he was more difficult to find. Active serial offenders produce new evidence. A man who stops produces nothing new. If he died, the case closed without resolution by default. If he continued killing elsewhere, under different patterns, he was never identified as the same person. None of these possibilities has been eliminated. The official case file of the Zodiac Killer remains open in the San Francisco Police Department. The last confirmed communication from the Zodiac was a letter mailed in 1974. He would be, if he is alive today, between his late 80s and mid-90s. The DNA collected from envelope saliva is still in the evidence system. It belongs to someone. Advances in forensic genealogy, the technique that identified the Golden State Killer in 2018, have been proposed as a potential avenue for identifying the Zodiac using the same DNA. As of this recording, no such identification has been made. The two unsolved ciphers remain in the possession of researchers and investigators who continue to work on them. In 2021, a group called the Case Breakers, composed of former law enforcement officers and investigators, publicly named a deceased man named Gary Francis Post as the Zodiac. They cited physical similarities to the composite sketch, forensic evidence they claimed to possess, and an anagram they said was hidden in one of the ciphers. The FBI reviewed the claim and issued a statement. The Zodiac investigation remains open and their prime suspect information was unchanged. They did not name who that suspect was. They have never publicly named a confirmed suspect. What do we know for certain? We know that between December of 1968 and October of 1969, a man killed at least 5 people in Northern California and wounded 2 others. We know that he sent more than 20 letters to newspapers and investigators, taunting them with details and ciphers. We know that he came close to being caught at least once, at the Presidio Heights crime scene, and was not caught because of a dispatcher error in a radio broadcast. We know that his DNA was collected from envelope saliva and does not match Arthur Lee Allen or any profile in any criminal database. We know that his palm print, recovered from the Lake Berryessa payphone, has never been matched to any identified person. We know that 2 of his ciphers remain unsolved. We know that he claimed 37 murders and that investigators have never confirmed or refuted that number. What we do not know is who he was. What we do not know is whether he is alive or dead. What we do not know is whether he killed before Lake Herman Road in December of 1968 or after his last confirmed communication in 1974. What we do not know is what the 18 unresolved characters at the end of his first cipher say. Whether they are truly his name. And whether they would, even now, mean anything to anyone still living. He signed his letters with a circle. A crosshair. A gun sight. He told the world what he was doing and dared it to stop him. It did not. And the file is still open. And the DNA is still unmatched. And somewhere, in the ordinary world he returned to, the answer exists. Whether anyone will ever find it is the only question that remains.